General Cathor of the Zorvak Dominion stood on the command deck of his warship, the Vengeance of Stars. Outside the massive viewing window, hundreds of alien warships moved like dark shadows through the endless black of space. The Dominion's banners glowed red on every hull, a warning to all who dared resist their might. Cathor was a proud warrior. His species, the Zorvak, had conquered more than 30 worlds. Their ships were made of living metal, their plasma weapons could melt mountains, and their armor was strong enough to survive small suns. To him, no race in the galaxy could ever stand against Zorvak power. But today, there was something strange in the reports. A small human fleet had entered the battle zone. Cathor frowned when the name human appeared on the holographic map. "Who are these creatures?" he asked, his deep voice echoing in the hall. His second-in-command, a tall insectoid officer named Vakran, answered, "Primitive species from the Sol system, General. Barely 50 years into faster-than-light travel. They are newcomers, not even part of the Galactic Council yet." Cathor laughed, showing his sharp mandibles. "And they bring ships into my war zone? Ha! They must be insane." Vakran nodded quickly. "Yes, General. Their fleet is small. Only one carrier, 4 destroyers, and a few corvettes. They claim to be from the United Nations of Earth." Cathor leaned forward. "Tell me, what do they want?" "They said they're responding to our distress signal. They think we asked for help." The entire bridge went silent for a moment, and then the aliens burst into laughter. Cathor nearly slammed his armored hand on the console from amusement. "Help?" he said, shaking his head. "The mighty Zorvak Dominion needs help from monkeys? Let them come, Vakran. Let us show them what a real war looks like." The human arrival minutes later, the human ships entered the war zone. They looked strange. Small, boxy, and made of thick, ugly metal plates. Their hulls were scratched, scarred, and painted with words like UNS Resolute and UNS Thunderchild. Alien observers sneered. The ships looked like flying scrap metal compared to Zorvak's sleek living designs. Cathor watched closely as a massive enemy fleet approached, the Krell Horde. Thousands of Krell ships filled the darkness, ready for battle. The Dominion had called for reinforcements earlier, but no one had arrived, until now. The humans. Vakran smirked. "Should we tell them to leave, General? The Krell will crush them." Cathor grinned. "No. Let them fight. We'll watch. I want to see how long these humans last." The battle begins. The Krell fired first, green plasma bolts that lit the void. The human ships didn't retreat. Instead, they accelerated toward the Krell fleet at terrifying speed. "Are they charging?" Vakran gasped. "Impossible," Cathor muttered. "They should be fleeing." The human destroyers spread out, forming a triangle pattern. They released thousands of small objects into space. Mines, drones, and something that looked like spinning steel balls. The alien sensors went crazy. The Krell laughed, until the first human weapon hit. A railgun slug. A simple piece of metal fired at near light speed, smashed through 3 Krell cruisers in one shot. The explosion ripped open their hulls like paper. The next shot came seconds later, and another Krell ship vanished in fire. "Primitive weapons," Vakran whispered. "But the impact, the power, impossible," Cathor said softly. "That should not be possible with their level of tech." The human fleet moved like hunters, every shot precise. Their ships shook with damage, but they didn't stop. Even when entire sections burned, they kept fighting. Their communications were open, and Cathor listened in. He heard shouting, laughter, and strange phrases like, "Keep firing, and for Earth." It didn't sound like fear. It sounded like excitement. Madmen in armor, the Krell launched boarding pods toward the human carrier UNS Resolute. Dozens of alien warriors stormed inside, expecting an easy victory. What they found was chaos. Human Marines in heavy armor were waiting for them. The aliens were larger, stronger, and armed with plasma rifles. But the humans fought with a kind of madness no one had ever seen. They charged, firing ancient ballistic rifles that made thunder-like sounds. Explosions echoed through the corridors. One Marine screamed, "For Luna!" before tackling a Krell commander straight through a wall. Another used a knife, against a creature twice his size, and somehow won. The ship's cameras sent live footage to Kethor's bridge. His crew stared in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Vakran whispered. "They're losing men, but they're laughing." "Insane," Kethor muttered. "Completely insane." The Resolute's captain came on the open frequency. His name was Captain Elena Ward. Her voice was calm and steady, even as alarms blared behind her. "This is Captain Ward of the United Nations Navy. Krell forces neutralized. Dominion ships, your flank is clear. Move now and hit them hard." For a moment, Kethor didn't respond. Then he realized she wasn't asking for permission. She was commanding him, and it worked. The turning point, the Dominion fleet moved as the humans suggested. Together, they surrounded the Krell flagship. The Resolute took heavy hits. Half its hull was gone, but it kept firing. When its main guns failed, it launched fighters. When those were destroyed, the humans launched escape pods and filled with explosives. The Krell flagship exploded in a burst of light so bright it blinded every sensor for seconds. When the view cleared, the battlefield was silent. Krell ships were retreating. The war zone was filled with wreckage, human and alien, but somehow the small human fleet was still operational. Kethor stood frozen. He had seen many wars, but never like this. These humans didn't fight with superior weapons or ships. They fought with willpower. They fought like they were born to survive anything. Vakran spoke softly. "General, the Krell are fleeing. The humans, they've won." The aftermath. When the battle ended, human rescue shuttles left their carrier, not to recover their own, but to help Zorvak soldiers trapped in debris fields. Kethor watched in confusion as humans in spacesuits pulled his wounded from shattered ships and treated them using primitive tools. They gave water, food, and even blankets. "Why?" he whispered. "Why help us? We mocked them." A human medic saluted through the comms. "No one gets left behind, sir, doesn't matter what species." Kethor's chest felt heavy, something strange and unfamiliar. Respect, maybe even guilt. Vakran turned to him. "General, what are your orders?" Kethor looked at the battlefield one last time, at the human ships floating among burning wreckage, their lights flickering but still alive. "Open a channel," he said. When Captain Ward appeared on the screen, Kethor bowed his head slightly, a rare gesture among Zorvak. "You have my respect, Captain," he said quietly. "Your people fight like monsters." Ward smiled. "We prefer the term survivors." Kethor let out a deep growl that might have been laughter. "Tell me, human, why do you keep fighting when logic says you should die?" Ward's smile faded. "Because if we stop fighting, someone else will die instead. That's not who we are." The communication ended. Kethor stood silently for a long moment, staring at the human fleet drifting among the stars. Then he muttered under his breath, "What kind of lunatics fight like that? And then offer bandages?" Vakran didn't answer. No one did. They all just watched as the human ships turned and slowly jumped into hyperspace, heading back toward their homeworld. The Zorvak soldiers who survived the battle would talk about it for years, about the day a handful of humans entered an unwinnable war and walked out victorious. And General Kethor, once proud and arrogant, began to realize something terrifying. These humans weren't strong because of their technology. They were strong because they refused to break. They didn't fight to conquer. They fought to protect. A month had passed since the Battle of Varrock Sector, the day humans shocked the galaxy. For most species, it became a legend whispered in disbelief. For General Kethor, it became an obsession. He replayed the battle recordings over and over inside his quarters on the warship Vengeance of Stars. Every explosion, every maneuver, every insane act of human courage was burned into his mind. He couldn't understand it. Humans were supposed to be weak. Their biology was fragile, their technology was old, and their fleet was tiny. Yet somehow they had done what the Zorvak Dominion's best admirals had failed to do, crush the Krell horde in a direct fight. Cathor stood before the hollow table, eyes fixed on a frozen image of Captain Elena Ward, the human who had led the fleet. Her calm face, covered with soot and blood, looked nothing like a conqueror's. But the fire in her eyes was something Cathor couldn't forget. Vakrin entered the room and saluted. "General, the Galactic Council has summoned you. They wish to discuss—" "The humans," Cathor grunted. "Finally. Let's see what the rest of these fools have to say." The Galactic Council. The meeting took place on Syraxis Prime, a neutral world made entirely of glass and crystal towers. Alien leaders from more than 60 species filled the grand chamber. The air was thick with tension and fear. At the center, the council's holographic table showed a single image: the human flag. The council speaker, a long serpentine being named Vrail of the Arathi, hissed loudly, "We are here to discuss the human problem." The chamber erupted with noise. Some shouted in panic, others in anger. They destroyed the Krell Armada. They use weapons centuries old, yet they win. They don't even have proper shields. They must be using forbidden tech. Cathor crossed his arms, standing at the edge of the room. He had fought alongside the humans, and even he didn't know how to explain them. Finally, the council quieted. Vrail turned toward him. "General Cathor of the Zorvak Dominion, you have faced the humans in battle. Tell us what you saw." Cathor stepped forward. His armor gleamed under the blue light. "I saw madness," he said. "I saw a fleet smaller than a hunting pack charge straight into a Krell swarm, and win. I saw soldiers who bleed and laugh at the same time. I saw weapons so primitive they should be useless, and yet somehow they tore through ships like paper. And after the battle, they offered help to those they defeated." The room fell silent. A reptilian general from the Reth Alliance spoke up. "Are you saying they use sorcery?" Cathor growled. "No. I'm saying they're insane." Laughter rippled through the chamber, but it faded quickly. The general continued, "Then what makes them so strong?" Cathor looked around the room. "It's not their strength. It's their will. They do not stop. They do not surrender. Even when their ships burn, even when death stands before them, they keep fighting. Because to them, losing means someone else dies. That is something none of us understand." The council murmured in confusion. "Preposterous," said a cold mechanical voice. It belonged to Synth Admiral A9, leader of the machine collective known as the Mind Chain. "Organic emotion cannot win wars. Logic wins wars." Cathor smiled slightly. "Then I invite you to fight them. See what logic does when a human is charging at you with a broken rifle and a grin." Arrival of the humans. The council was interrupted when a voice echoed across the chamber. "Representative delegation from the United Nations of Earth. Arriving now." All eyes turned as the doors opened. 3 humans walked in, Captain Elena Ward among them. The aliens stared in silence. Compared to the tall, colorful beings around them, the humans looked small and plain. Their skin was pale, their clothes simple, and their weapons non-existent. Yet there was something unsettling in their calmness. Vrail hissed, "You were not invited to this discussion." Ward smiled politely. "We heard you were talking about us. We thought it would be rude not to show up." The room erupted with whispers. Some species felt insulted, others intrigued. Ward continued, "Humanity is not your enemy. We came here because the Krell attacked Dominion space and we responded to a distress call." "That's all." "Lies," shouted a bulky creature from the Boro clans. "No one defeats the Krell so easily." Hugh used forbidden tech. Ward sighed and tapped a device. A holographic image of the battle appeared. Every shot, every explosion, every desperate maneuver. "This is what we used," she said. "Kinetic weapons, railguns, nuclear missiles. No magic, no superweapons. Just what we had." The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans fought like beasts, patching hulls mid-battle, flying ships manually through fire, shouting orders while everything burned. At the end of the recording, Ward said softly, "We fight like this because on Earth, if you don't fight, you die. We come from a world that kills the weak, so we learned not to be weak." Fear and respect. After the humans left the chamber, chaos broke out again. "They're monsters," shouted one alien. "They're heroes," said another. "They're both," muttered Cathor under his breath. That night, smaller council meetings were held privately. Secret reports flowed between factions. Some species wanted an alliance with humanity. Others wanted to destroy them before they grew stronger. Cthor was invited to a private session with the council's top generals. In a dark room filled with holograms, Vrail spoke first. "General Cthor, do you believe the humans are a threat to galactic peace?" Cthor hesitated. He wanted to say no, but the truth was complicated. "They are not trying to conquer anyone," he said finally. "But if anyone threatens them or those they care about, they will burn entire worlds if they must. They are not conquerors. They are protectors. But make no mistake, and if they choose to fight, no one can stop them." Vrail's golden eyes narrowed. "Then they are a danger." Cthor's claws clenched. "Or a hope. Depending on how we treat them." The attack on Xeraxis, before the council could decide, alarms began to scream. The chamber's walls glowed red. Explosions shook the floor. A voice shouted over the intercom. "Unidentified fleet attacking Xeraxis orbit. They're using drone ships, thousands of them." The council panicked. Vrail shouted, "It's a rogue AI fleet. The mind chain's lost control of its own drones."
Admiral A9's voice crackled coldly. "Impossible."
"My drones do not—" The transmission cut out. The machines had turned on their master. Outside space was filled with fire. Drone ships, black, fast, and countless, rained plasma on the city. Alien fleets scrambled to defend, but they were overwhelmed. In the middle of the chaos, Cthor saw something unbelievable. The human ships, the same small fleet from Varrock, were descending from orbit. The UNS Resolute, scarred and patched from the last battle, led the charge. Ward's voice came through the comms, calm as ever. "All human ships engage and protect civilians. Prioritize rescue ops. Let's show them how it's done." The human intervention Cthor's warship joined the defense, but it was the humans who took command. Their ships weaved through the drone swarms like predators, using improvised tricks that defied logic. When alien shields failed, humans sent boarding pods full of Marines. When weapons overheated, they cooled them with water and kept firing. When a drone hacked into their system, humans unplugged it manually and reconnected the wires. On the ground, human soldiers fought side by side with alien defenders. They carried wounded allies on their backs, patched up broken machinery, and used explosives with reckless skill. Cthor saw Ward leading her troops personally, firing from behind shattered walls. Every time a drone was about to strike, she moved faster than expected, as if instinct itself guided her. Within 2 hours, the drone fleet was destroyed. The skies over Xeraxis were filled with debris and burning light, the reaction. The council watched the aftermath in silence. Hundreds of alien lives had been saved, by humans. Ward stood before them again, armor dented and face streaked with ash. "You wanted to know what kind of species we are," she said softly. "Now you've seen it. We don't start fights, but we end them," Vrail spoke quietly. "Why help us after how we treated you?" Ward smiled faintly. "Because it's what we do. No one fights alone." The general's realization later, Cthor stood alone outside the ruined council hall, watching human medics treat wounded aliens. One human engineer used a fusion torch to repair a damaged Zorvac weapon. Another shared food with a trembling Orathi child. Bakran approached. "General, they saved Xeraxis." "Without them, we'd be dead." Cthor nodded slowly. "I know." He looked toward the humans and said quietly, "They are not a problem. They are the answer. And the galaxy is not ready for them." Vakran tilted his head. "Answer to what?" Cthor's gaze hardened. "To everything we've lost, courage, mercy, and purpose." He turned and walked away, his mind full of heavy thoughts. For the first time in his long military life, Cthor felt something new, hope mixed with fear, because he now understood a terrible truth. Humans were not overpowered by chance. They were built that way, by their brutal world, by endless struggle, by evolution that rewarded madness with survival. The galaxy had known peace for a few short years after the Battle of Xeraxis. But peace, like everything else, never lasted long. Deep in the forgotten edges of the universe, something ancient began to awaken. It started with a signal, faint at first, then louder, spreading like a disease through subspace channels. Worlds went silent. Fleets vanished without distress calls. Artificial suns dimmed one by one. Then came the name whispered in fear. The Eternals. They were older than any recorded species, machines of pure hatred, built by a civilization that had long destroyed itself. The Eternals didn't speak, didn't negotiate. They existed only to erase life, to reset the galaxy. The first system to fall was Dravax Prime. Within hours, its 5 billion inhabitants were gone. Only silence remained. The call for help on his warship, Vengeance of Stars. General Cathor stood in front of a holographic map showing entire sectors turning red, one after another. Vakrin spoke nervously. "General, the Eternals move too fast. Every defense fails. Nothing stops them. Plasma, railguns, antimatter, useless." Cathor's claws dug into the metal railing. "Where are the humans?" "Unknown," Vakrin said. "Their fleets went silent weeks ago. Some say they're preparing something." Cathor frowned. He remembered Captain Elena Ward. Calm, fearless, impossible. He knew humans would never run. If they were quiet, they were planning. A moment later, a communication beacon flickered to life. A human symbol appeared on the United Nations of Earth. A message followed. "To all civilizations of the galaxy, the Eternals have reached the core. Humanity will not flee. We will fight. Join us or stand aside." It was signed by Admiral Elena Ward. Cathor felt his chest tighten. He turned to Vakrin and said in a low voice, "Prepare the fleet. We go to war." The human counterattack. The human fleet gathered at the edge of the Loran Rift, where the Eternals had begun consuming entire systems. When Cathor arrived with his Dominion armada, he expected to see chaos. Instead, he saw something completely different. The humans had built a fortress. Dozens of carriers floated in formation, surrounded by thousands of drones, satellites, and orbital guns. Massive structures shaped like rings glowed blue. Wormhole stabilizers powered by human ingenuity. The UNS Resolute, still alive and scarred from old battles, stood at the center like a proud veteran refusing to die. Admiral Ward appeared on the comms screen. She looked older now, her uniform scorched from months of battle, but her eyes burned with the same determination. "Welcome to the line, General," she said. "We're glad you came." Cathor bowed slightly. "You humans are insane, Ward. This is suicide." Ward smiled faintly. "Then we die trying." The Eternals arrive. The darkness of space rippled as thousands of Eternal ships emerged from hyperspace. They weren't like normal vessels. They looked like black shards of glass, silent and perfect. Their weapons didn't glow. They drained light. Every ship that tried to scan them failed. Every computer that analyzed them shut down. "They're jamming everything," shouted Vakrin. "We can't lock targets." Ward's voice came calmly through the channel. "Then do it manually. Aim with your eyes and trust your instincts." Human pilots grinned and said, "Roger that." The battle began, the war of fire. The first wave of Eternal drones hit like a storm. Human and Dominion ships fired everything they had. Railguns, missiles, plasma, even nukes. Explosions filled the void, lighting up the black ships like sparks on water. But the Eternals kept coming. For every one destroyed, 10 more appeared. Cathor watched as the UNS Thunderchild rammed straight into an Eternal cruiser, detonating its core reactor. The explosion wiped out both ships, and still the humans cheered. "They're losing half their fleet," Vakrin said in disbelief. "And they're celebrating?" "They don't count the dead," Cathor growled. "They count the ones still fighting." For hours the battle raged. Human ships moved in tight formations, sacrificing themselves to buy seconds for others. Every second mattered. Then the Eternals unleashed their main weapon, a sphere of pure antimatter energy. It expanded like a black sun, vaporizing entire fleets. The Dominion ships tried to flee, but the humans stayed. Admiral Ward's voice echoed across every frequency. "All ships, formation echo. Activate the mirror array." Dozens of satellites lit up, forming a circle around the human fleet. The antimatter wave hit and reflected. The explosion consumed half the Eternal armada in one blinding flash. When the light faded, the humans were still there. The turning point, Cathor's flagship, was hit. Flames and sparks filled the bridge. He refused to retreat. "Hold the line," he roared. "If humans can stand, so can we." Vakrin shouted over the noise, "General, our reactor is critical." "Then let it burn," Cathor snapped. "We fight until the stars go dark." Outside, a human battleship flew by, half its hull missing, guns still firing. Inside that ship, soldiers shouted battle cries. A voice came through the radio. Captain Elena Ward. "Cathor, we found their command ship. I'm leading the strike. Cover us." "You'll never survive," Cathor warned. "Didn't plan to," she replied. Her ship, the UNS Resolute, charged straight into the heart of the Eternal Fleet, engines blazing. Thousands of black ships turned their weapons on her. The Dominion fleet moved to block their fire, taking hit after hit. Cathor's warship lost engines, then weapons, but he didn't stop. The Resolute reached the command ship, a massive black structure the size of a moon. Ward's ship launched all its nukes, then rammed directly into its core. A blinding light swallowed everything. After the light. When the light faded, the Eternal Fleet was gone. Completely gone. Only wreckage and silence remained. The battlefield floated in ashes, human and alien ships drifting together. Vakren's voice trembled. "General, it's over." Cathor looked around. "Where's the human fleet?" The answer came in static. Then slowly, faint signals appeared. A few human ships still alive, broken but not destroyed. The Resolute was gone. Cathor felt something deep inside his chest. A strange, painful pride. He ordered all remaining ships to recover survivors. The aftermath days later, the Galactic Council met again, this time not in anger, but in silence. Syraxis was filled with memorials for the fallen. At the center stood a statue, not of an alien emperor, but of a human soldier holding a broken flag. Frail of the Orathi spoke softly. "The humans saved us all." Cathor stepped forward. "No, they didn't save us. They saved the idea of us. They reminded us what it means to fight for more than survival." The chamber was quiet. Many of those who once feared humanity now looked ashamed. Vakren whispered to Cathor, "What happens now, General?" Cathor looked toward the stars. "Now we learn from them, or one day they'll have to save us again." The lost message weeks later, while exploring the wreckage of the Eternal Fleet, Dominion scouts found a damaged human black box, a recording from the UNS Resolute. Cathor listened to it privately in his quarters. It was Admiral Ward's voice. "If anyone finds this message, tell them we didn't fight because we were brave. We fought because someone had to. The galaxy is worth saving, even if it doesn't believe that yet. Take care of it for us." The message ended. Cathor sat in silence, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. The legacy of humanity years passed. The galaxy slowly rebuilt itself. Humans became legends. Statues of them stood on alien worlds. Children from dozens of species grew up studying their battles, their bravery, their madness. Cathor, now older and scarred, retired to a quiet moon. Yet every night he looked at the sky, remembering the sound of human laughter in the middle of war. One evening, Vakren visited him. "You still think about them, don't you?" Cathor nodded. "Every day. They were the only species that didn't care about fear." They looked at the end of everything and smiled. Vakren sat beside him. "Do you think they're gone forever?" Cathor smiled faintly. "No, humans never stay gone. They always come back. Stronger, louder, and even more impossible." Epilogue. The return of the Resolute. Decades later, long after Cathor's passing, a signal appeared from deep space. It was faint but familiar, a single message repeated over and over through the void. "This is the UNS Resolute. Humanity endures." Every ship, every world that heard it stopped whatever they were doing. Across the stars, people looked up in silence. And somewhere out there, in the dark between galaxies, a small human ship burned its engines once more, heading toward another war, another challenge, another impossible fight. Because that's what humans did. They never stopped. They never surrendered. They never died quietly. They were, and would always be, too overpowered for the galaxy to understand.